Welcome to Season 2 of Producer Points. My name is Justin Gamella, and I'll be your host. I'm a producer and songwriter who's had the honor of working with some of the best in the industry. This season, we're diving even deeper into one-on-one conversations with producers, mixers, songwriters, and artists, exploring their unique journeys, creative process, and insights that shape great music. Join me for real talks, straight from the studio, where music and life intersect. This is Producer Points. Today on Producer Points, we welcome an artist whose career is as dynamic as his sound. From electrifying live performances with Miguel and Machine Gun Kelly to crafting tracks for artists like Em Beihold, One OK Rock, Fletcher, jxdn, Christian French, Clean Bandit, and Vic Mensa. His work spans genres and generations. As a guitarist, songwriter, and producer, he seamlessly bridges the gap between live musicianship and innovative production, creating records that are raw, emotive, and unforgettable. His ability to make music feel alive in both the studio and on stage has solidified his place as one of the most versatile and forward-thinking creators in the industry. Let's welcome the incredibly talented Falconry. Dude, thanks for being here.
Cool, man. Quite a preamble.
You know,
prologue.
Prologue. It's the part of the podcast that I work the most on, by far.
Well, a writer is a writer.
Yeah, you know.
So whatever you're writing.
Yeah, I try, and it's also like a good ego boost for the guest. Gets you to open up a little bit more.
Of course we want. Yeah, I know that was for me.
Right.
More than everybody at home.
Yeah, no,
I already know it, and I still want to hear it.
Right, you want to hear it. You forget what you do sometimes, and you're like, all right, I did all that stuff.
We're going to be all right.
Yeah. Dude, well, I mean, thank you again for doing the podcast. We always start the podcast off telling us about how you got into music. So where did it all begin with you?
In my neighborhood, in my decade, being in a band was what I thought anyway was the ultimate thing, you know? There was like a lot of sports going around. I'm from Baltimore, Maryland.
Oh,
so you
we love Baltimore.
Yeah, right? I do anyway. You love Baltimore?
My wife has two sisters there that live there, so
cool.
we go there a lot.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So in like the early 2000s, you know, you could be a lacrosse player, or it's my version of what Biggie says. You had to have a wicked jump shot or slang crack rock. I had to either play lacrosse or shred in a nu metal band or something like that.
Yeah.
And so that was what I was doing. And I had my first job ever. I was like washing dishes in a kitchen, 15 years old. And two guys in the kitchen who are much older than me became my singer and drummer and like took me under their wing.
Crazy.
21-year-old dudes, so old at the time. And at 15, I was already like obsessed with the guitar and had little bands, but very quickly from that first job, which was a terrible job, it parlayed into like a band that we took ourselves really seriously, and I felt very cool and taken care of because of the age gap. I was like little brother, and it just like caught like wildfire, and you couldn't tell me no. So that was always the dream. And then
what was the project's name, if I'm just curious?
The first one was called X-Rate.
Okay.
Which it lives out there somewhere.
It's somewhere if someone wants to check it out.
EX/rate. It was short for extinction rate, the speed at which things die, which we thought was really edgy. And
this was like
brutal.
A nu metal project?
Yeah, it was like two singers, like Linkin Park era.
Dude.
Rapping, screaming, a lot of chugging, and I was really proud of it, man.
Yeah. Also, side note, I know it's a little bit of a tangent. I finally listened to the new Linkin Park album, and I was like very pleasantly surprised.
Cool, good. Yeah, I haven't given it a whole lot of time, but Colin, who's playing drums, is a friend of mine, and he wouldn't do anything that's not rad. And so I should like really sit down and listen.
Yeah, it's like very like much like Hybrid Theory. It's like they went back to that era, and it's like, okay, that was like, I was a huge Linkin Park fan.
Of course. Yeah, so this was that.
Yeah.
When you could have two singers, and between Linkin Park and 311, which is like a band that was really inspiring me at the time. Linkin Park, of course, you couldn't escape, but 311 really did something for me. And anyway, so I did that for a long time, whatever. It felt like forever.
A long time is a relative term.
Yeah, and then at like 19, I moved over to LA, and then the world got really big, really quick.
Yeah.
Tried to bring my band with. They didn't make it. This was a new band at that time.
What brought you out to LA? Was it music? You were like, I'm going to go out to LA to do music? Or what was that?
Happy to report that it was no such capitalist pursuit as a career. I just had broken up with my girlfriend, my first ever girlfriend, and I was shredded. And yes, I did like come to a music program out here. I ended up going to school, and I did have like a place to land that is really important part of what made me feel comfortable here.
Right.
But I didn't, if I'm being honest, I didn't come here thinking that I had to be here to have a career. I for sure thought it was Baltimore, then the world.
Right. That's what it
Step
was.
one.
Because
Step
I
two.
think I'm a little bit younger than you are. And like, I feel like when we were in music, when I was younger at least, you're right, it was bands. And like, you were like, oh, we'll get big in our hometown.
Oh.
And then we'll go out from there. And like, it's such a different world now.
Sure.
Like,
I don't even know if it was true back then, but that's what I for sure was convinced.
That's what I thought too, so to be fair.
Yeah. So I wasn't so aware of how big the world was, but I was heartbroken. And I was just like, I gotta just get away from here, and I'll show her. And she still kind of lived close enough by that I was hearing about it. What her new boyfriend, who was a DJ, and fuck that. And so yeah, then I came out here just really to soothe my soul. And I mean, on day one, I figured out a brand new speed, and I loved it so much, and
Amazing.
I was no longer heartbroken, or maybe I still am, actually.
You never know.
Yeah.
You'll find out in a couple
I
years.
have since thanked her, though. This woman is still, vaguely in my life, and I'm grateful. I really am. It went exactly the right way it was supposed to. And since then, every heartbreak, as you know, too, as a writer, is like just rife with good stuff if you can find it.
I'm such a, I'm not a very spiritual person, but I am a big believer for whatever reason, and like everything happens for a reason. And it's like, this brought me here, and this, like all the bad things that happen in my life, even ones related to music, got me to the point where I'm at now, where it's like, I'm so lucky to be doing this full time.
What was one of the really dark things? I
mean, even, my band that brought me out here, that like made music reality, it's like, we had so many dark times because it was an indie pop duo, and like, now we're on such great terms, but we were butting heads a lot, and it was like really horrible at times, and like really bad. And but that dude also like showed me that I can make music my career.
Yeah.
And so it's like, you take the good with the bad, and it was like,
now is that dude still here?
He's in Nashville, but he's not doing music as much anymore.
Right.
He has a family now and stuff, but yeah, man, and it's just how it goes sometimes.
Yeah.
But that's just like one of the many things.
The band that I, quote unquote, left when I came here, although I didn't leave the band. We had just put out an EP, and I came here and kept flying back home. As we were talking about on the way in here, I just flew back to Baltimore this past weekend, and I do a lot of, I like to do it, even for a weekend. And I kept going home for like a year or two. And kept having band practice and playing shows, and they never made it out here, which is fine now in retrospect, although it broke my heart at the time. And I remember when I first went back, when the band finally broke up because they figured out I wasn't coming out, or more readily, I figured out I wasn't going home.
Right.
And when I went back like 4 years later, we were going to do this big reunion show at Fletcher's, like the coolest spot for like the little local scene.
Right.
And my drummer didn't do it because he was just so mad at me that I didn't come back, even for all the effort that I felt like I was putting in. And I was out here slanging the CD, right? This is a decade plus ago. And I had all the stickers, and I was stickering the whole city. And I felt like I was riding for my band, which this one was called To a Science at the time. Also obscure, and yeah, now we're on good terms, but it was like cold for a little while, and I'm like, damn, I wanted to feel like I had a tether back there that hurt me at the time, that like they would see me as anything but like a co-conspirator out here. Like, you could come and be, if ever you wanted to break free, you could come over here.
Dude, I had the same thing with my bands. I was always just like, there was one guy in my band, this was like my band before the indie pop band, that he is one of the most talented musicians I've ever had the pleasure of working with, and I know he could do the thing. And I would just like be like, just come out here, like let me help you, and just he never did it.
Where are you from?
I'm from Long Island, but in the band that I was in at this time, I was living in Buffalo because I went to school in Buffalo.
Cool. A lot of cool bands from Long Island,
A
bro.
lot of great bands from Long Island.
Glassjaw.
That Glass. Come on.
That's my
Amazing
one right
band.
there, dude.
But yeah, and it just like sucks where it's like, I know so many people, and I'm sure you know the same amount of people that like I know could do the thing, and it's just like it's hard to take that leap, to come out here and.
Yeah, I have since put it in a place through much searching and therapizing that my boys and girls are exactly where they want to be.
Right.
And it was vain for me to wish something for those dudes that they didn't want for themselves. It was more about me, you know what I mean? And there's no like pity associated with it or anything, because that is like a false, that again, that was just like ego, you know what I mean? Like they want to do what I'm doing. Like,
right.
My shit is just as insane or as, improbable as anybody else. And so they like have raised families and been, significant in the Baltimore scene in their way. And so that's what they wanted. I think the other thing you're talking about, like everything happens for a reason, is like, we're all exactly where we are comfortable with being.
Yeah.
That's what I really think. And people maybe hate to hear it if you like are able to dream bigger, but like, are you able to allow the blessings? Like, I'm going through this all the time. I think I have, the Spotify Wrapped came out today.
Yeah, it came out today, yeah.
And I could count every number on there is like exactly as much as I'm allowing into my space. And like, I always like that there's more to be, and to be the underdog and stuff like that. I don't know why I like fetishize that, but I'm quite sure that next year be growth that is concurrent with like what I think is appropriate and what I've earned and all this like self-flagellating shit, you know what I mean? So whatever. I don't anyways, long story short, yes, our boys back on the East Coast, I would bring every last one of them here, and you can stay on my couch and let's write a song. But they're where they want to be, and I love that for them.
So after, doing some time in LA, what got you into doing, writing in pop rooms?
For years, all I wanted to do was get on a tour bus and go on the road. That was the singular goal, and it remains my favorite thing.
Yeah.
So I was fortunate enough to do that for a long time. And on one of those tour buses with one of my favorite artists, Miguel.
An all-timer.
Yeah, just an alien of greatness. The whole band was like in production mode. It was sort of an unspoken prerequisite to be in that band. You had to be like hyper creative.
But you're not just like hired players. It's like you're musicians who are creating at the same time.
Yeah, we went through that tenure. I was with Miguel for like 8 some odd years. There were people that came and went that sort of were more like guns, but they didn't last long because he is as he is and demands that. And so anyways, that's how I learned that it was important to be a producer and to be in the computer and to be more than just like a technician on the instrument. So I owe that to him and to Jamie, our bassist, and Brooke DeLoe, our DJ, who kept that bar high. And then somewhere along the way, I like learned to fall in love with it because I didn't really love it for a long time. When I was like a kid in the studio in Baltimore, the studio was fine, but I was just like, if we have to do this in order to get on stage, then I'll do this. You know what I mean? It was sort of just like a means to an end. And then, one day I decided to take a leap of faith and come off the road. This is now 6 years ago or something, and open a studio and like just pivot to that. And it's going good.
It's going good. We'd love to hear it, dude. Yeah, I like, you don't hear it too often about like live players becoming songwriters and producers. And the same thing is like, I know so many guys that can do it. It's just, it's like taking that leap of faith and like being, walking away from a paid gig to like do what we do, where it's like, I'm probably not going to see any money for a little while. And, it's
a weirdly different experience.
Oh, yeah.
It's like super not even the same ballpark in a lot of ways. From the like immediate gratification of being on tour and like you're expressing yourself and right there it's coming back to you, and how like godly that is, And then in the studio, you just have to also now that happens for me in the studio,
Right.
just like you got to find another way. You have to like love the sounds, and maybe you have some collaborators, and
Right.
you're still getting it, but it's pretty undeniable when you're on stage. And so there's that. And then also I am having to learn again and again about how to like simplification when on stage. I think like Olympian type cool, the lights and the speed and
Right.
and then when you're here, it's like, can you turn all that around and just serve the song and just serve the moment? And it's been it's like two sides of my brain. It's made me a better guitar player, really, like in the chair.
Right.
It's like, oh, what does this moment actually need? You
Right.
know? And now I can get back on stage and be like, all right, let's like.
Yeah, it's funny that you're talking about this, because one of my questions I had for you is, how did performing on stage influence your approach to production?
Yeah, so the other way.
Yeah.
So how did the stage influence the production? Well, with artists who give a shit about live shows, which not everybody does.
No,
You don't have to right now. The session I had earlier today, the artist had never done a show and has like millions of followers, and that's just what it is.
Yeah.
So I can't relate to that, but I do support it. I'm always going like, should we write the show that's the funnest song to play? Or sorry, should we write the song that's the funnest one to play at the show? Because that's a thing. That's a fun directive.
Yeah, and I think a lot of artists don't realize too, where it's like, I was working with an artist last week. They're like, yeah, I just have a lot of slow songs, and I played my first show, and I realized I only have slow songs. And it's like, like you got to learn that the hard way sometimes, you know?
Yeah, so I default to that sometimes if we're in the room and we're trying to figure out North, and I'll be like, well, how about, what was your last show and where was it and what does that feel like to you? And should we write the thing that takes your show to the next level? So I kind of always am like one step away from that part of the game.
Well, see, it's funny because like I think like that too, because I was in bands for years, and I'm always the guy in the room where it's like someone was like, I don't know if we should have that intro to the song, but I'm like, yeah, but when you come out on stage, you're gonna hear that intro, and people are gonna be stoked that like it's that song, because like I have those memories too as like a fan going to live shows.
Well, and then the inverse of that is like hacking an artist or a writer who wants the intro or wants the bridge or wants this or that, and I can say like, well, the live arrangement, we're definitely doing that.
Yeah, right. You can extend things live. You want to make this bridge twice as long?
Right.
You know?
Like I can't actually wait and I'll do some ND stuff. Let's make the live arrangement like that. But like this one, let's make it cut and dry. So now I'm speaking out both sides. I'm the bad guy. I'm like, no, let's make this radio edit.
No. I do the same thing, especially when people are like, I want this bridge to be really long, or I want this outro to be really long. I'm like, well, what if it's not, and you do it live, and like you can play this bridge 4 times in a row, and have so much fun with it. Oh God, that's really amazing. So when you're working in a room, because I noticed that, like myself, like you co-produce a lot. What's kind of like your favorite setup in a room, and how you work best?
I do love being a band guy.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll do 100% stuff because sometimes that's the deadline and just what the directive, but I just love it to feel like everybody's in there like putting their 2 cents in. So I never mind having a co-producer. I never mind having a writer and an artist, and like at least like a 4-piece is killer to me.
Yeah.
And then among that 4, if I'm the one driving all the time and the other producer is, I'm putting him on the synths and the guitars, him or her, or we're sending stuff back and forth, that's great. Oftentimes the other producer will be super proficient computer person, and I get to just get right back to like, let me play every single instrument.
Yeah.
That's fine. I love to write. Sometimes the other producer is just doing all of the soundscape stuff, and I'll just sit with the artist and be on our top line mode.
I feel like you're very similar to me, because I do that too, because I top line a lot in just rooms by myself, but I'm also like a decently proficient player. Yeah. And that's why I love working with co-producers, in the sense where it's like, ooh, you drive. Yeah. And like, let me play. Yeah. And then just do a bunch of things. And my favorite rooms are like mostly for like pitch pop writing, but like I love having like me and another producer in a room and like we get to mess around.
Yeah.
And I go back to top line and stuff.
Yeah, you can get
It's
to
a
the
good
truth
time.
a little quicker, I
Yeah,
think, that
yeah.
way. And I want to challenge myself always to be able to, it's like decision making. If it's just me producing, or God forbid, it's just me doing all of it, then I got to just trust myself.
Yeah.
And there's like a skill set there, and that's worth experimenting with all the time. And so I like that. Fine. But I'm having to like try. When I'm doing that, I'm like, all right, is this good enough? Yeah, I guess it's good enough. Like,
Right.
Drew, what do you think? You know what I mean?
Right.
And when I'm in with somebody who I trust, you just ask, and like the answer is right there.
Dude, there's like nothing better than just like, even like going through like snares and be like, I think I like this one. Everyone's like, yeah, that's the fucking one. Do that one. It's like great. And like,
oh, you let them choose snares over your shoulder?
No. But sometimes it's like, it's like you're just going through
that's
things.
That's a dangerous game.
Oh, no. Yeah. I
This one?
When I'm in a room, like in a pop session, like I'm rarely producing out too much. I'm usually just getting sounds. But yesterday I was in a session where I was like helping this other producer like finish up a track. So I was like letting him look over my shoulder because I'm like finishing his track. So I want to have so much respect.
Yeah.
For it. But yeah, it was the same thing. I was like, I think the snare's sick. He's like, no, that's the fucking one. Do it, man. So it was like, it's like great. Like we can just move a little bit quicker than that. What are you working? What DAW are you working in usually?
In Ableton.
You're Ableton guy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this past year, cracked FL a little bit. Not cracked. I bought it, but I cracked that.
Cracked the seal.
Right. The tomb.
Yeah.
And so that has become a little bit under my fingers. And then at the beginning of the pandemic, I repurchased my Pro Tools license with the intention of, as long as I'm paying for it, now that they got this bitch ass subscription, I'm like, if I'm paying for this every month, I'm gonna make it part of my workflow again. And 3 years later, it's not really part of my workflow. But in a perfect world, we're gonna get them at the top of the year. I'll have those three kind of working in tandem. Would be like the dream scenario.
But also Pro Tools is getting better. They finally added playlisting for MIDI instruments,
So which I heard.
Right, which is like, oh guys, like 20 years too late. But
well, Ableton doesn't even have that.
Yeah, right, exactly.
It's annoying.
Right. Which
you
is
gotta
like,
just nail the MIDI or it will disappear. Although there is a way to like unravel it.
Right, you can unravel and do the whole
but,
thing, which is what I do. But
what the hell?
Yeah. But yeah, same with Pro Tools. Like, okay, guys, finally, I don't know why it took this long to like
little bitch and stitch sessions on the dolls right
and
here.
It's like I don't have to like like do too many takes on a MIDI thing, but there's sometimes where it's like
I do.
Well, because I'm a piano player first. I'm very proficient, but there's like sometimes when it's like mostly on a piano track when I'm not recording my real piano, and it's like I'm playing things, but sometimes I'm doing like little fills on the piano differently. Yeah. And so it's just like I want to be able to go back.
Let me loop it.
Yeah, let me go and
for
just
sure.
do the thing.
Let God take over. I know.
So I'm really glad that I have another guitarist here on the pod because we don't do too much guitar talk on the podcast, and
let's make up for it right now.
Yes, let's make up for it. I'm such a guitar guy.
Cool.
But what's your?
I see that.
Yeah, right. I got it.
Yeah, for the listeners and viewers, just behind camera A.
Yeah, there's 15 guitars.
Floor to ceiling guitars.
Dude, I just bought another bass.
What'd you get? Let's go.
I lowballed an offer on one of those, the Hofner, like, the violin bass.
Yeah.
I've always wanted one, and I just saw one on Reverb.
The Paul McCartney.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. I'm a huge Beatles fan.
I actually heard you say that on the podcast, so I know about it. The Arkwright. I saw your
David.
Arkwright.
Oh, yeah, you know David? Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, David's like one of my best friends.
He's a gem.
Yes. Mm-hmm. We shared a studio for many years.
I heard the whole thing.
Yeah. Anyway, I love David.
And evidently his dad is a bigger Beatles fan than you, or is he?
Yeah, well, I'm sure he is. Okay. But anyway, so we'll do a little bit of guitar talk here.
Oh, you said you got the Hofner. And what, from the 60s?
No, it's like a remade one. It was like I bid $250 on it.
Yeah.
And I was like, and I just did a lot of reading, and everyone's like, these guys were actually really great if like you get them set up and you put different strings on them.
Because a lot of companies remade them and are equally as, like, we have an Aria one in my studio, I think, and they're all kind of Japanese, and because that instrument is so singular, they actually do the thing. Like a lot of the knockoffs do the thing.
Right, and this isn't a knock. It's still Hofner, but it's just like a cheaper, quote unquote, version of it. So I'm just like, I was like, I'll take.
Where are you gonna put it though?
Yeah, I have room.
Okay,
I'll find a spot. Anyway, so guitar talk here. I want to talk about not really what you do in live because this is the producer show. I want to know when you're in the studio, how do you as a very good guitar player. How are you liking to record a guitar into your DAW?
I just got back from a camp in Switzerland where we mic'd and mic'd and mic'd and A-B'd so many heads and multiple cabs.
Crazy.
And I am now obsessed with that. Not just because of that. 2 or 3 years ago, I did the One OK Rock album, and Rob Cavallo, who executive produced that, is like Mr. Guitar nerd.
Right. In case any of our listeners don't know, like that guy is legendary. He's been, 20 years just been making albums?
Oh,
like,
more than 20.
Yeah.
He did every Green Day joint, Jawbreaker.
Oh, yeah, so coming up on 30. Yeah, crazy.
Goo Goo Dolls, I mean, God mode.
Yeah.
And has more guitars and more amps than Guitar Center.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And so when I made the first now of 2 One OK Rock albums I've worked on with him, I learned a lot about how to treat guitars. Now, in my studio, I do have a booth where the amps are mic'd up, and I have, so in the booth, there's an AC, a Vox, and the long ass cable run to that with what's called like a STI in the middle, because it runs so you don't lose your
your
you
juice.
know what I mean? So like all that to the combo. And then in my control room, there's like 4 or 5 heads that run to a 212 cabinet. So I did like adopt that thing. However, 4 out of 5 times we're writing and tracking at the same time. And so I'm just going in the front end. I mean, it just depends on who's in the room.
Right. When you're in the room with like, especially when you're writing a song, you're like, I just got to get this idea down. I don't have time to like tweak and mic it up how I really wanted to.
Right. And I'll always say, oh, well, we'll go back and reamp this. And I mean, it's really depends on how obsessive everybody is with the first day joint. And, but I am now like seeking out projects or have built my studio in a way where it's pretty easy to just get those tones and have it all be mic'd up. And I got 2 mics in there, the 414 and the 57, and it's all fresh.
Right.
But so it's not like it's really harder. What it is you're committing, and that's what's great about it. But it's also what's maybe not, because the artist maybe is ready to commit, or since we're meeting one another for the first time today, or we don't even know what the song's about, maybe flexibility is the answer. Yeah. In that case, I'm just going in the front end, and I'm like, hey, we can, if we all take a smoke break and then we come back and completely change our minds, like we can do that.
We can always do that. Yeah, I am such a committer. I have a Kemper only because I like to commit to things.
Yeah, cool.
Where it's like I have, amps that I could mic up, but obviously I'm not micing it up in a session because I only have this room here.
Yeah.
When you are going,
I have the Kemper too.
Yeah.
Although I mostly use that live.
Yeah. It's amazing for live.
Yeah.
Just the fact that you can like hook it up, sync it up to MIDI, and then it's just like changes for you.
Yeah.
It's like, I wish I had that back when I was playing live.
Right. Yeah.
But when you're going into the DI, what are your go-to either amp modelers or effects that you like to run guitars through?
Happy to talk about this because my favorite guitar tonal instrument is a like unsung hero, and it's by a company called Scuffum.
Okay, never heard of them.
Nobody knows about it.
Yeah.
And it's called S-Gear is the name of the Scuffum is the company, and S-Gear is the platform.
Okay.
And it's just a thing not unlike Guitar Rig.
Right.
Really easy user face and stuff, but it is, I think, the coolest tones. And I'm reaching for S-Gear when I'm trying to get like the meat and potatoes tone. Like if I want this to feel like an amp and break up this way and respond to the neck versus the bridge. S-Gear does that. What S-Gear doesn't do is it's not like a creative thing where like a Guitar Rig is. In Guitar Rig, if I'm like, okay, there should be something tremolo-y and warbly, and there should be something that is 1979, and then you just go in Guitar Rig and click around, and
see what happens.
It'll serve it to you, and I like to do that, and S-Gear doesn't do that. So S-Gear is just like dial in a badass tone. Right,
like tone, then this is like, what's going to be like the meat of the song.
Yeah, now I'll feel like satisfied, because I do want the guitars to feel like alive and stuff. Yeah. So I still reach for Guitar Rig for those sort of like Hail Mary moments.
Because I mean, like, listen, we were talking about it on the podcast we did yesterday, but it's like presets are amazing so much of the time. Yeah. Where I'm just like, all right, let's just see what this does, and it's just like that's the benefit of Guitar Rig that other ones don't really have.
Yeah. Well,
you know?
and S Gear has a ton of presets, by the way, and you can download more of them, like all that stuff. It's just not as weird.
Right.
And Guitar Rig will do all types
they've
of
been
weird
adding
stuff.
pedals for 20 years now, too.
Yeah.
Well, quote unquote pedals.
Right.
But
and I use the archetype stuff too, like
Yeah.
anybody does, like the Corey Wong stuff
Yeah.
and the Pliny stuff and the Tone King stuff.
Yeah.
That stuff's cool to me. But similarly, archetype I would use not as a creative tool, but just as a tonal shaping tool.
Same.
And I just like S Gear better. And maybe part of why I like it better is because people don't know about it.
Yeah.
So maybe it's the elitist in me.
Maybe you're about to give them a bunch of
past me.
sales.
Yeah. Okay.
You
Well,
know?
hey, yeah.
You know,
shout
hit
out.
them up. I gotta check it out. Yeah, I've never used that.
Yeah.
And I'm always looking. God, I literally have all the guitar things.
Well, this
And it's
one
never
would be
enough.
cool. And shout out to my homie Jamie Silverstein, who put me onto that
Yeah.
and was the bass player in the Miguel band that I was talking
Okay,
about, who has
sick.
put me onto I mean, I owe a lot of my production perspective to this one particular dude.
Dude, amazing. I love to hear
Yeah.
that. We all have that one person
Yeah.
that we're just like, yep, because of that person, I'm doing this, or they brought me into that.
Yeah.
It's a running theme throughout the podcast. So this is the question that I really wanted to ask. What are some of your go-to guitar pedals that you love, or your like hidden gems?
Like on the floor
Yeah.
pedals. So Chase Bliss is killing it.
Yeah.
And the Mood, and I have what's called a Dark World. That's like a delay reverb thing that I
Yeah.
really like. The Blooper is really cool for, again, Hail Mary stuff.
Yep.
Jamie Silverstein put me onto that
Yeah.
too, where it sort of loops back over itself and stuff.
My
and
buddy had that, and I got to use it for like a couple months, and it was so much fun.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah.
Again, it's not something that I necessarily do if the artist's in the room and we're like seeking a song, but if I'm making loops for somebody or just painting, then it can like
I used it for a lot of
surprise
like
you.
transition-y effect things.
Cool.
It was like I would run my Mellotron through it all the time. And it sounded
Brother, that's my
great.
favorite synth.
Yeah.
Synth.
Yeah, synth quote
Yeah,
unquote.
the Mellotron is my number one favorite keyboard.
Yeah.
But more pedals that I like. So I love the ones I can just kick around. Like
Yeah.
the gain stuff is like I got a Tube Screamer that I like. Everybody loves that.
Yeah.
Full tone full drive. That's really cool.
Yeah.
The Big Muff. I mean, that's like not a groundbreaking.
No,
That's just
but
something everybody needs to
If
have.
it ain't broke,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, I'm trying to think what I have that's like obscure. Oh, the Moger Fogers.
Yeah. I had the opportunity to use one once. They're a lot of fun.
And I keep on discovering more of them. I sort of, before I bought in, I was like, oh, that's just a pedal. There's a
Right.
whole line,
Yeah.
and they all look gnarly
Yeah.
and do one thing, which is annoying because they're like big and expensive. But I have like this 12-step phaser that's
Ooh.
just beast.
A lot of fun.
And so any Moog thing is going to kick ass, like
Yeah.
no doubt about that. And then yesterday, I actually responded to somebody on off. They're selling a bunch of pedals. We're always
there you
looking.
go.
And this dude had a bunch of good pedals. And I said to him, I was like, yo, I would buy like 5 of these if you want to like kick the deal.
Right.
And he got back to me. Maybe I'll do it later tonight.
Yeah, later. Go
Okay,
grab
so
them.
the one he has that is one of my great regrets. I wanted to invent this pedal when I was young, and I never got around to
Right.
doing it. It's called the Plus, and it's a piano sustain pedal.
Oh, I've seen this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it looks like a piano sustain
Yes.
pedal. So
Yes.
if you don't know what I'm talking about, I've always said what the piano has over every other instrument
Right.
is you can kick that sustain pedal, and then as you play, stuff
Right.
just rings out into perpetuity, and you can play new stuff. I mean,
Right.
it is the great hack of
Right.
the instrument. And guitar players, like, if you're not actively playing it, it's gone. Like, maybe
Right.
you put a little reverb on, a delay,
Right.
or
But
whatever.
other than that, yeah.
So this is the thing that I've always wanted as, like, Mr. Nerdy,
Right.
stack notes on top of notes, and somebody finally fucking did it. And I said, when I was, like, in my college years, I was
Yeah.
like, and hanging out with a lot of piano players.
Right.
It's like, I'm gonna create this pedal. Anyways, this dude's selling that, so I'm probably gonna buy that.
You have to let me know how it is, because that's something I would probably buy.
It's
if
like, will I find a real use for it? It's probably something I would like live.
Right.
Because in the studio, you can just create that cascade, but live, I would probably write parts that like are
Yeah.
that. You know?
I feel like it would be almost good, this is me pontificating a little bit, on like a rubber bridge or a palm muted guitar, where it's like the notes are short, but like kind of what you do with a piano, where it's like a bump, but it gets to ring out still. That to me is what it could. That's what I would first use it with.
Okay.
Something like that.
I will report back.
Yeah, let me know.
So that one, and the other stuff that he had that I liked was like some other Chase Bliss thing. What else did he have that I thought was cool? Some Earthquaker thing. You know what I did with my production partner Snake is about a year ago we went to this studio in Belgium of all places called ICP. And ICP had
not Insane Clown Posse.
Not Insane Clown Posse, but good shout.
Yeah.
They had every pedal ever in the most improbable way, and every amp and every synth. And we flew there to work with Jid or JID, the rapper, who never showed up.
Oh, fun.
So we were there all weekend just looking for something to do. And we played every single obscure instrument that they had. And some of the pedals, there was one that was like a cigarette ashtray, and you like turned the cigarette, and it was a thing. There was one that was a full skull, and the eyeballs had the dials. I mean, all of the most aesthetic things. And some of them sounded like shit, but they just had it, and it was so meticulously done. You pulled out the racks, and there was 100 pedals. And again, if the artist had been there that day, I would have like pulled a tube screamer and got to work. But because they weren't there, we just did all of the shit. So we still laugh about that. We made so many loops, and I wish I could remember. My favorite ones, I don't even know. They're like from Russia, Soviet era stuff, you know?
That's crazy, man.
Yeah.
Sticking to pedals for a second, do you have your pedals hooked into your studio ready to go? Like, how do you like to...
They're all out. Yeah. But they're not routed mostly. Okay. So there's a pedal board that stays dialed like for live stuff that I barely even bring out anyway, because I will bring out a Kemper or like a Boss GT 1000 or something, because I still do love the Boss GT platform. That's what I kind of learned on, and I still ride for that. But all the pedals are out. And so it's just as simple as like making a chain.
Right, making a chain. Yeah, no, I'm thinking about maybe next month, like doing a thing where it's like, all right, I put it in the patch bay over there and like run other things through it. But then it's just like, I never end up doing it. I just end up just like quickly, I only want to run the Mellotron through it. That's all it is. So it's just like, all right, I'll just plug the Mellotron in and do the thing.
I think it is so fun when dudes have it all, the whole line is together. I was at Josh Murdy's studio last week, you know, Josh, and his studio is very clean and everything works exactly as it's supposed to. Yeah. And his pedals are all in a chain, I think, and you just turns them on. And that is like the grown man way to do it. But I end up, I don't know how many shows he's playing. I end up like pulling them to go do shows.
Right, because you need to go do shows, right, yeah.
So even sometimes I'll catch a wild hair and I'll like build it, and then inevitably I will deconstruct
I should hit him up and ask him how he did it. Because I'm like, I know there's like a couple different ways to do it. Like the quote unquote proper way, but I want to be able to do it where it's like, okay, so I want to be able to run my guitar through it really easily, but also like if I want to run like a vocal through it. Just like do it quick. So
that is a thing. And have line level versus input level.
Right. It's all the bullshit where you're like, oh, line level, not this.
Yeah, I don't want to deal with that. But you know, the smart way is to just pay somebody to do it.
Yeah, I know. But it's like my own hubris where it's like, I can figure it out. It's like, I'd rather
hubris your way to not having it done.
Hubris. And it's like, listen, like I have no problem spending money, believe me. But there's like certain things when it's like, okay, if I can do this. Yeah. Like even like my desk over there, like I built that desk.
Yes,
because it's like I could have paid someone to do it, but I was like, no, I'm gonna build it and do it and like use that money I would have paid that person to like buy something. Yeah. That's the mindset.
I dig, and no, you're right. I mean, it's a fun thing to do too. I mean, it's like an erector set. It's like Legos, you know, just like adult Legos.
It's like I'm trying to give myself projects for when I have my second coming in February.
Congratulations, a mazel tov.
Thank you. But so I'm gonna take some time off, but I am gonna have time to like come in here and like noodle. And I'm like, okay, maybe if I give myself...
Will you?
I will. I will. Yeah. Because like,
what does your wife think about that?
Listen, babies nap a lot, and she will nap, and I can't nap. Cool. So it's like when you guys are napping, I'm just gonna come in here and go noodle. Cool. Okay. Otherwise, I'm just gonna watch TV all day.
Got it.
But yeah, so I'm just trying to like little projects. All right, I want to move on to the next topic here, and it's our song deep dives. The first song we're gonna talk about is Em Beihold's "Numb Little Bug." I've had the opportunity to work with Em. She is an absolute gem.
Yeah.
Also lives in this area, like Glendale area.
Yeah. Our hood.
Right? We love Glendale. But I'd love for you to like tell me the story about how that all came together.
Yeah. Delightful.
Yeah.
Artist and human, and the song changed all of our lives in a great way, and I just remember it super fondly. And it was written in a day, and M came in to my last studio, which was at my house in Beechwood Canyon, so like really zen, safe space, we like to
Nice.
think. And I had only met her that day, and she had had a little bit of buzz from us, like I think her first song that blew up, which was
Yeah.
called Groundhog Day.
Yeah.
So I was like sort of aware of what she was about, but I'm not the type to do a lot of like homework before artist gets there, or like I'm gonna listen to your top 5 and think that I know what you want to do next. Like
I'm honestly the same way.
not my
I used to
take.
do a ton of homework, and I think it actually made me worse.
Yeah.
As opposed to just like going in fresh.
Yeah.
And just
I
like,
leave it up to the spirits
Right.
mostly. I mean, oftentimes I'm working with my friends, so I know exactly what you're about.
Right.
But if it's new people, yeah, it depends. I mean, I guess if I got like free time in the gym or something, I'd be like, oh, I'll check them out.
Right.
It's not like I'm not interested in what they're about. I just no longer, if ever I did, think I'm gonna like figure them out before they get there.
Yeah, no.
What's the point? We're about to have the most vulnerable experience ever, so like I can wait for that. So I was like sort of aware of what she's about, but not having any preconceived notion. And then me and Nick Lopez, who's one of my favorite collaborators, Elijah Hill, the three of us all work really close together, and Em, and she had a riff, man. She had a little piano thing that kind of became that whole dun dun dun. She vaguely had that thing worked out, and I had just bought my Nord at the time, so I was stoked on like getting the piano sound out of that, and I was like, let's make this acoustic piano, like let's just go for that.
Yeah.
She played it on the Nord, and in a way that was sweet, that she either allowed or she spearheaded, the song has like a lot of sections and cool chord changes, and like that is a thing that I love. So when she came in with like sort of what's effectively like an R&B riff, the sort of major pentatonic thing that it does, I remember like pushing, being like, okay, well, we can, you know, if we're here, we can go here. And you know, again, I don't know that I did it or she did it, but we both saw the space to stretch. And then the pre-chorus sounded like a hook, and so we had to beat that, and then the hook became the hook, and then the post-hook became the hook, you know, in the way that you aim
that
for.
These things happen.
Just, everything becomes more and more sticky. So that's what happened that day. And then, to her eternal credit, and to the credit of the TikTok gods, she went home that night and just played it on piano.
I didn't know that.
I mean, it was her riff. Yeah. And posted it, and then people flipped for it that day. And I think there was the label was already kind of warming up to her. Numb Little Bug kind of happened as she was onboarding with the label, so we kind of caught a good one with that too. I think they wanted to prove themselves to her.
How much of the record was done that first day, at least like the production?
It did go on a journe.
Okay.
Only to then land back pretty close to where it started.
Yeah, that's
so
how it always goes.
we we might have had 5 sessions or something, but the middle 3, we were bringing the A&R, and then the A&R had notes that we would do, and then on the way home, Em called Nick, and she's like, not that.
Yeah.
And I remember her being really bold about that, which was cool. And I was like, okay, cool, because you're right.
Yeah.
And so we would undid some of those things. I always will remember, and I tell this story when I'm looking to dig into A&Rs.
Yeah.
Although her A&R is great, but
listen, no one's right 100% of the time.
Yeah,
you know?
She said, I think maybe we should speed up the pre-chorus. And I was like, oh, well, like, you want to speed up the tempo? And she's like, yeah, just the tempo of the pre-chorus. And then I'm like, well, does it stay, you know, the Dan Nigro thing where you're like up by 2?
Yeah.
And no, she was pitching, like, just changing the whole, and then changing it back. And, you know, I tried it. I tried to appease her, but it wasn't the right choice at the time. So anyways, long story short, then we got back to square one, we were satisfied, but the label still wanted to feel like there was something that wasn't there.
Right.
And that's when Dallas came on board.
Okay.
And Dallas kind of like took it across the finish line and added really important stuff too. But
Yeah.
I have since listened to the day one thing, and maybe one day she'll want to like share that with people.
Yeah,
but it's pretty uncanny.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how it goes sometimes where like you like, you know, I'm so big on no stone left unturned,
Mm-hmm.
but then sometimes you're like, yeah, we had that feeling day one for a reason.
Yeah.
And you know, the thing I'm curious about, because it's not happening as much anymore, which I can't tell is a good or bad thing, but from the time that she played it on TikTok and it blew up, like how quickly did you guys be pressured by the label and whatnot to like get it done, to release it?
I mean, they, now looking back on it, her label, which was Republic, did have their sights set on it, or they had their priorities in the right place.
Good.
And so they sent the A&R to the session the second time around, which is rare. And then the third session, Livingston came, and we did a whole choir thing.
Oh, wow.
And in my house at the time, there was concrete floors and vaulted ceilings, and I moved the whole studio into like what was the atrium basically, and we tracked all this whole choir with Livingston, whose voice is incredible, in this like cavernous space. And then that wasn't right for the record, because the record is way more like in her bedroom.
It's tight. It's so tight.
Yeah,
and like,
it is as she is, which is like, you know, sort of cozy with a cup of tea type thing. So that didn't work. But I'm quite sure we only were taking those stabs because the label was like pressuring it. Otherwise, M would have come back and we would have like tried to write another song or something.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So we were doing that. I didn't feel pressure necessarily, but the fact that it was going that way was because some wheels were turning.
Yeah. It's having the TikTok success like that, and like it's such a thing where it's like someone puts out a song, it's the demo, or they just play it, then it's like, oh shit, we gotta like it's blown up, like we gotta jump on it now.
Right.
That pressure's there, and then you know, it's a whole thing. You know, were you guys surprised by the success of it? Because, you know, I feel like I didn't know who she was, and then all of a sudden, like everywhere I'm walking around, it's being played all over the damn radio. I feel like it was almost out of nowhere where she just kind of like blew up.
Let me tell you this. I'm surprised by everything. Every single time I'm on the chart, not me on the chart, but anytime I'm looking at the chart, or if I happen to be on it, or when I'm looking at New Music Friday this past week, you just don't know.
Right.
In a way that I think I'm setting myself free. It's probably, again, like a little bit defense mechanism where when we're in the room, and there's a lot of cats who like their strength is, oh, this is a hit, we got a hit. And like, I know, and I got my finger on the pulse. And some of them seem to, but how can you, it's like stunning. You know what I mean? From like right now, what's on the charts, let's date the podcast here, is the Sabrina Carpenter stuff, which is pure and obvious.
Yes.
Badass, okay? There is the Bruno Patin.
And then the other Bruno.
And then the other Bruno.
Right.
Which couldn't be more different.
Yeah, but both
and
so
Bruno's
good.
like so really good. But like they don't even belong in the same top five, you know? And like what else helped me? I guess like the Weekend
you get Shabuzi, who's like had the number one. He just got off it because of Kendrick.
Kendrick's number one right
Kendrick's
now.
Number one with his album dropping.
Yeah, which is cool, but that's like hardly my favorite. It's not even my favorite song on the album.
Right.
So I tend to just like let go and let God.
Yeah.
Like I'm trying to chase on any given day what we think is the truth. Yeah. I'm not really trying to play by the rules, whatever's in there. It maybe sounds like think that that's special. I don't. No. I just don't fucking know.
No. I think it's like anyone who really thinks like they know, it's like they're kind of talking out their ass. But there are
Benny.
No, exactly.
You know what I mean? Like
it's like, but then there are the people who like truly have like great taste and they just like know what they're doing. But like I feel like you know, even the people who have major hits, it's like they're always just like they have a higher batting percentage, but they don't always know. You know?
At some point too.
Yeah.
your batting percentage goes up because it goes up. So you're up now. So now the label is leading with that, and now you're in the room with better people.
I was talking about this in my session today,
Yeah.
where it's like it goes up because not only because now you're in the room with better people, you're in the room with bigger artists, but also it's like, oh well, like you have had some success, so if you wrote this song,
this is our favorite song now.
Yes,
yeah,
and like you see that all the time, and it's just kind of like the natural progression of things.
I had a lunch yesterday with. Should I say I'm not even gonna say his name because the nature of the bomb drop is we will protect. But he's just like, we just charge the most.
Yeah.
Because then they want it to be the single because they paid the most for it.
Yes.
And then they sort of like drag their feet across the finish line, and as soon as we get that deal done, they're like, cool, you got anything else? And that's not the school that I come from, is like, pressing all of the pressure points. But I think he's right.
Oh, I always try and like get as much from major labels, right? As much as I can get, because I have that same ideology where it's like they're a business, especially now they're like so conglomerate.
Yeah.
And these A&R and the budget people, they're like, well, we spent 40, not saying this is my fee, but like the higher end fees are like $40,000, $50,000, $60,000. Like we spent $50,000 on a production fee. We got to make sure we get that back.
So this is it, y'all. Right. Look, you heard it here first, or maybe not first, but the charge 50. And then you'll get the single, and they'll bring you back.
But it does kind of force them to like do the thing where it's and like I think that's how you can tell too. They'll sometimes say it's like, oh, we only had this for a budget, and it's obviously, as a producer, I mean, just being a musician, it's really hard to walk away from any money because the fact that we get paid to do this is like always so mind blowing to me. Like,
well, and they're gaslighting the shit out of us.
Of course, there's no real budget.
They're just telling us, oh, this is gonna be really hard, and like won't such and such artists be heartbroken if they feel that like you're just in it for the money. Like
it's like, yeah, they would be heartbroken. That seems like a you problem. That's not a me problem.
That's like a pill that I still swallow all the time because I don't love negotiating on my behalf. You were saying before we started that
I do it.
You like it. Yeah, so good for you. I just am like to keep it on the cushy shit.
And this is only with majors because it's like they own so much of the record. When it's successful, they make the most money.
Yeah.
And it's like, all right, well, I got to make sure I get paid. And it's, with like indies, it's like, listen, I'm the most flexible with fees and everything. I always want to make sure a record comes out, especially when I'm working with an indie. I'm like, I will get paid nothing if you give me like a fair percentage of the back end. I always want to make, because I'm not in it for the money. But at the same time, I want to know if this record does well and makes someone money, I want to at least know that I did make money on it, whether I got it on the front.
It's the other thing that how we got here was once they spend the money, then they push it, and the song gets the spread and the visibility that it deserves. Yeah. So I'm not in it for the 50 racks. No. You had to pay me 50 racks in order for you to do the work.
The strategy.
That the song gets so that you decide to push it to radio and do the video and all sorts of stuff that you're not going to do if I charge you on the cheap. So they forced our hand in this regard.
How I can tell too if a label's going to push, like not even if I get a good fee, but if like, they're getting like a Serbin or a Spike Stent to like mix it. And I'm like, all right, now they're investing. Like they're investing in this.
Yes. You're not paying Serbin or Manny 3 times what you paid me for them to do it in a day.
Right. Just so it's like it's like an album track.
Even as I'm saying it, like it is still not my skill set. I'm like you. I'm just as easy to like just put the master on the back end. I've had some of my favorite wins. And I'm sure it's maybe one of the next songs on your list there, wherein we just did it on the strength.
Yeah.
And then that went the distance,
Yeah, dude, I have so many records where like I owned anywhere from like 25 to 50% of the master. And it's like I ended up making up more money from those records than some like other records that did, quote unquote better.
This is the ugly truth.
Yes, it is the ugly. Yes,
absolutely. More indie stuff, more taking bets on ourselves and the young artists that we believe in.
Yep.
Taking more bites of the apple, like you got to put out a lot of records in order for one of them to be the one. Yeah. But then you all get the kickback and you're not like sort of feeding off the little teat of the label or Spotify. So Yeah, I guess I want both.
Yeah, you would. No, you got to do, like, my strategy. I'd like to do a little bit of both. You know, I love doing pitch records. I love having a pitch record do well, but I also love, like, when, like, an indie artist that I really helped develop wins.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, they have their tour sell out, like, things like that. It's just like, damn,
yeah.
like, I was a part of that, you know?
Yeah, who?
Oh, like artists that I've done it with?
Maybe that had their tour sell out, something that you're really
Oh,
proud
yeah,
of.
like, you know, I really worked a lot early on with Ash. I was
Sick.
like really on a lot of her early stuff.
She's great.
Yeah, she's amazing. This girl, Rosie Darling, I now do all of her stuff still.
Sweet.
You know, a couple other artists, and then like there's some people that I'm like very quietly developing that have nothing out yet. So,
but the tour will sell out.
Yeah, hopefully, right?
Yep.
We're crossing our fingers. Speaking of these younger artists that we help from the start, the next song I wanted to talk about is actually no, I'm going to skip that because I did have one question. I don't know if you did it or Dallas did it, but the one question I had for M, for Numb Little Bug, in the production is there's a bass in there, and I can't tell if it's a guitar or bass guitar or something else. Do you remember what you ended up doing there?
I'm pretty sure it's bass guitar.
Just bass guitar?
I love to play bass guitar.
It was a really unique sound to it, and I was just like, yeah, no.
Well, I don't know which sound you're referencing either, so maybe it was me or maybe it was Dallas, but I am a big thumb style bass player, and that came from like my R&B world, like Marcus Miller style stuff, Pino Palladino style stuff, and largely cats who are writing bass in the studio don't come around to that unless you've like been at jams and stuff like that. And I actually was listening to Pino on Questlove's podcast the other day, and he said something about it that I thought was fascinating. I'd never thought about, is that when you pick the bass, or if you're digging into it, that it affects the envelope such that you lose the low end. And he said, indeed, the best way to get a boomy low end from bass guitar is to play lightly.
Yep.
And as soon as you dig in, you're like sort of cutting all that. And of course, I'm aware of that, but I never really thought why I'm so into this particular style. And it's just because it's 808ing.
Right, that's what it is. Yeah.
You know? So maybe that's what you're talking about. Maybe
no, it
not,
is.
But
That's because it's like the kind of bass that I love. I love like real bass, and to like.
You bought the Hofner.
Yes, I bought the Hofner.
Yeah.
I love, like, I have this jazz bass over there that's like so thick sounding. Like, I haven't felt the need for another bass because I love this jazz bass.
Flat or round wound strings?
Those are round. I'm gonna obviously keep flats on the. I kept round on there because it's like, you know, I do rock stuff every once in a while.
I have one of each.
Yeah, and so now this is gonna be my flat wound.
Yeah,
finally. But yeah, man, it's like, you know, there's times where it's like I'll do the finger and then I'll switch to the thumb and I'm like, yeah, I like this thumb.
Yeah,
like and. It's like I'm not as proficient on it, which I get mad at, but it's the sound I want. I want that like low end thumpy, you know, really feel it in your chest kind of bass. But you know, that is what it is. It's like ditch the pick and just.
And I find on the thumb thing too, you can really control the sustain and the release. Like, you know, when I'm in the finger style or the pick, it just pops off.
Right,
and depending on where you are on the neck, it's going to resonate more or less, or what note you're playing in the scale is going to like have some tail or it won't. It's just like a psychoacoustic shit. But if you're back here like choking it, I'm paying attention to how it pops off the string, how long it's going to go. Like there's way more sort of micro stuff happening.
That makes sense. It does. That's the secret. Use your thumb, guys. Hey gang, I just wanted to pop in here to let you know that the best way you can help this podcast grow is to rate and review us wherever you listen to podcasts. It tells the algorithm to push our show to other listeners so we can grow, and it's one of, if not the best way to help support this podcast. So if you wouldn't mind, take a second to rate this podcast. Sharing it with your friends would be amazing too. All right, back to the pod. Okay, I want to go on to the next song here. Christian French's Love Ride.
Yep.
I remember listening to that track when it first came out years ago. And I honestly haven't listened to it until yesterday when we were talking. We were like, oh, what other tracks should we talk about?
Yeah.
And I forgot, like, how really cool of a track that is. It came out, you know, almost 7 years ago now. But, you know, what's the story behind that? And mostly I do want to talk about the guitars in that track because they're just insane and, like, really fucking cool.
Cool.
Yeah.
We are super proud of that.
Yeah.
There is a video of us making it.
Oh, sick.
And it was the first day I met Christian.
Yeah.
So that's a theme. Why I always have to take every single brand new session, every single speed dating session is because the 2 songs you named happened the first day I met people, so you never know.
Yeah.
Christian flew to town, and my roommate Devin, who is an actor from St. Louis, where Christian's from Indiana, but they're Midwest boys. He's like, oh, I gotta give this kid a shot. I'm like, whatever. Christian said, I'm gonna bring my videographer homie, and we're gonna make the whole song in 24 hours, and we're gonna film the whole thing. And at the end of 24 hours, it's just gonna be what it is.
Okay.
And I, at that time anyway, take that bet. I was still like touring a lot, so like pulling all-nighters was just part of the thing. And I wasn't such a good mixer that I would have said, oh no, let me have more time to mix. I was like, cool, this is going to let me off the hook at the end of it. Like whatever
this is
it
the
is.
Mix, you know?
Right? And I never knew he was going to become a major label artist. So I was like, yeah, great. So you mean like no matter what, we're finishing this thing, you know? So indeed, Justin Escalona came, filmed it, kept us honest. We like set the timer. Yeah. We did it we spent all 24 hours on it.
Crazy.
And the guitar is woefully out of tune. But that first one, but it kind of adds to the vibe. It's sort of
it sounds like you like
stuff.
put it through like a tape machine, and like it sounds like it was done on purpose.
It was. I don't remember if we mic'd it, but we definitely just like I wrote it and we just tracked it, and we were like, well, there's no going back.
Right.
This is what it has to be now. And I remember what I did spend a lot of time on that I'm really proud of. That is nobody's paying attention to is the keyboard chords in the second verse have some cool ass voicings in them. And again, it was a thing where if we had time, I would have probably zoomed out, gone, oh, do these things belong? And if they do, let's put them in the first verse. And like, let's sort of spread this out a little bit. But as it stands, it just was like a weird thing that happened in the second verse. And that's where it stays. Yeah. And the way the drop happens with the super bendy synths, that was pretty indicative of the time, you know, like serum stuff. Yeah. So we were just going with what we knew, and I probably had just discovered serum or something. What I still do to this day is pitch bend all my synths.
That's so fun.
And I just can't not. 2 things.
Are you like manually pitch bending it, or you're like going in and drawing it in after?
Well, it depends what synth I'm on, but if I'm on a synth, and I do play a lot of, I got like cool synths, I can't not. My thesis is all instruments at their best are aiming to be like the human voice.
Yes.
The closer you can get to the way the human voice moves, the closer you're getting to the truth. And so the one thing that the piano doesn't have is bending in the in-between notes. That's the piano's comedy tragedy.
You know what's funny when you say, like, when I give a lot of vocal production like notes and stuff, I'm always comparing, like, I'm like, you're singing it like a piano and I need you to sing it like a violin.
Yeah, there you go.
And people immediately get it. They're like, oh.
Yep.
Right, of course. Like
the violin is fretless, and so all the middle stuff is in there, and you need the middle stuff.
Yes.
And so on a synth, that's what the pitch bend is doing for me. Whether I'm holding on a note and just bending it enough that it's doing a tape warble, or we're doing the whole octave thing, which is what I'm pretty sure happens in Love Ride. So that was just what was going on, and the sound I knew how to get out of Serum at the time. And, you know, yeah, it was just like he and I, and there was a couple other hangers on in the room, but it was really, we just locked in, and I love a deadline.
Yeah, I need a deadline.
Yeah. So that was great.
And so like that's like your mix, the record that came out. That's great. It sounds great.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I sometimes wonder whether it's great or and I need to revert back, you know, like mixing is like hardly my favorite thing to do.
No, I hate it.
But I'm like, shoot, I just think that like the spirits were in the room that day.
Right.
Cause I'm a way better mixer now than I was then. But sure enough, the thing, and then, you know, it's like listeners either totally care or they don't care, or they care about a clever lyric, or they don't care about. I mean, you just can't call it.
It's not even. I don't think that listeners care or don't care. I think it's that like they don't know what they don't know, and they don't like they can't compare it to like a mixed versus an unmixed version.
Yeah.
This is the version that they have.
Right.
So it's like, okay, this is it.
Right.
You know, like and that record like does feel raw. It almost like it's almost mixed and I hope you don't take it the wrong way, like how some of those like earlier bedroom pop sounds were.
Well, it is that.
Right.
It's early bedroom pop.
Right.
I mean, that's what the heck it is.
And that's what it is.
And
it's
all in Ableton and all in the same session.
Yeah.
There was no like summing it down and like no sophisticated
it was
anything.
just like bounce and then we're done.
And it's cool. It really did work well, and I'm super grateful. Part of it was probably the instrumentation, like this sort of add-in strat with a serum.
Yeah.
And then using like when we went to the drop, it's like all the way those type of drums, and in the verse it's all the way like musicality stuff. And so maybe the fact that it's those opposing parts make it cool, where it's not necessarily one whole. It's sort of like a patchwork.
It's a really, I mean, like Christian's voice is I love his voice. I had the opportunity to work with him a couple of years ago, and like such a great singer. But it's just like how everything feels out of place, but it doesn't at the same time.
Yeah.
It's just like, this is just a cool record.
And you know what those strings are? And like the other thing that I think is cool, but also dates it a little bit is it had like the anti-drop.
Yeah.
The big drum roll to the dun, no, which will never get old. I mean, I don't know if it's dating anything. That's all like to fall off the cliff.
I mean, it was like very like, you know, like chain smokers, like that's what was popular around that time.
Yeah, that was the thing. And those strings were, it was just like one string sample. They were audio samples.
Right.
That I wasn't like playing in from like a synth engine. I just like had some cello samples, and then I stacked them and like just created the chords out of that. And so I think that's cool because it doesn't sound, it sounds like strings to me. It sounds like pizzicato strings to me. So I just don't think I probably had a cool synth engine.
Right.
So, but I did have some like samples.
Right. You're just like, cool, I'll just put these samples in and just like see what they do.
And I do know how to like spell a chord or whatever. So I just like kind of went in, and I think they took a break, and I was like, cool, let me just like nerd
so like you did
out.
it like with like audio where you would like then pitch it up.
Yeah, just Ableton'd it.
Yeah. Yeah. See, I wouldn't like, I don't have the patience for that. I would probably just like put it in a sampler, and I was like, I'll just fucking play this.
Well, you said you love the sampler, and I mean, it's the same vibe.
It's the same idea.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
I just get like too impatient. Like,
but the sampler will tighten it up unless you like turn it off the.
Well, you turn it off this other mode. I forget how you do it. Yeah,
right.
But there's the way to do it.
Because I unwarp them, and then I'm changing. Well,
because then they all get like different lengths sometimes.
Yeah, I don't
and
want
then it's
that.
like they're hitting weird.
Particularly with pits, like they all need to be like the
I need them to hit at the same exact time.
Yeah, right.
It's really annoying.
So, but it is kind of the same, and Ableton makes it exceedingly easy to do that. So God bless them.
I love Ableton. It's so much fun. I just changed a couple little things.
I have a list in my phone ongoing of what we would change if ever we get in front of Ableton, and they, you know, if ever I'm like at the symposium, which I did go to in fact, Christian brought me to the Ableton headquarters one time, and they didn't ask me what I what I
Dude, I have you ever heard this guy? He's a very obscure artist, but he kills it. His name is Unlike Pluto. He's great. Anyway, we'll speak about this too. He's one of those artists that self-releases everything, and he like does so well, and he's just like makes a good living off it. But that's besides the point.
Cool.
But he was like friends with someone, like one of the people who design Ableton or work on the code or whatever. And like he had the opportunity to be like, hey, can you do these things? And they're like, yeah, if we do that, we have to rewrite the entire code.
I heard that story.
Right.
But I heard that story as it relates to track lanes.
Yes. And then they fixed that.
And then they did it.
Right. So it's just like,
that was the story they told us
it.
for a long time. They're like, yeah, we have to undo everything. I'm like, well, better get to work.
Right. It's like, okay, well, I'll buy it. You're making me buy the new version every time. So maybe rewrite the code. You know, like just do that. God, I could have a list for every single DAW. And, you know, we'll see what it is. All right. I want to move on to our next topic here. And this is where I get to ask you one of my favorite questions. But what's a current piece of gear or plugin or something that you have in your studio? It doesn't have to be something new, but something that the past couple of weeks you're like really keep going back to.
Well, the past couple of weeks was Thanksgiving in Baltimore, and then I was in Switzerland before that. But the week before that, my Juno 106 but that's not news to anybody. That's just the hot shit. So let me come up with a better, like, I will give you a more obscure answer.
It doesn't have to be obscure. I mean, if it's the Junos.
Well, check this out. Okay. This is a good answer. Back to Rob Cavallo and the 1OK Rock thing. Before putting the Christian French thing to bed, I am so proud of him and that song. And so I love being able to talk about that because it was lightning in a bottle, and we've done it since then.
I gotta check out that video. It must be on YouTube or something somewhere,
it's called, like, can you make a hit song in 24 hours?
There you go.
Like, bet you can't, or whatever. And they were like...
I gotta check it out.
So, we're in with Rob in his 1,000,000 amps a year or two ago, and he has what he calls amp condos. An amp condo is 5 or 6 heads in a live-in case that's taller than me, all routed out. And he's got like 5 amp condos. So in the control room is like 20 some odd heads of the raddest heads that you want. There's 2 412s mic'd up in the live room, and then you can just switch between all the heads. It's effectively going through presets in the DAW, but it's with the real shit, you know? And he's got this one head that you always go back to. I don't even know if he wants me telling the story, but we're too late now. And it's the Dookie head that they used to make Green Day's Dookie. And there's, making a long story short, there's only 2 in existence. One is Rob's, one is Billy Joe's. The amp tech who modded it and made it the amp that has now been on so many records. And indeed, we kept going back to it. I mean, it's cool because it created Dookie, but it's also cool because in a room full of 1,000,000 amps, it was the one that kept on doing the thing. So he tells me and Toru, who plays guitar for 1OK, you know, the amp tech sadly passed away. And so when me and Billy Joe's amps die, it's gone. It won't exist anymore. And we're like, well, did you ever think about having somebody open it up and like get new schematics? And he's like, well, Marshall came at us 20 years ago and said, you know, can we put it out as a signature? And both him and Billy Joe, being the punks that they are, like, no, fuck that. You can't. Yeah. We're not like selling this. We're selling the album. We're not, you know what I mean? Or whatever was the reasoning. Yeah. And so he shot that down. But we kept on using it, and I kept on trying other amps. Kind of my job at that week was to... Toru is the rad guitar player, so my job was to like nerd out on the tones and stuff. And we kept going back to it. And so finally we talked Rob into having a tech open up his amp. If Toru and I agreed to buy the exact same, it's a Marshall Super League 100, we had to buy the same year from the same factory. If we find those, which are obscure already,
very rare,
then he would agree to begrudgingly have an amp tech open it up, and then we would both mod it and da-da-da. And so that's what we did.
No.
And Toru's came from Japan. Mine came from Germany. We got them shipped from way the far away. It was totally an ordeal. And then months later, a dude had figured out what the sauce is and had modded our things. And so that's my favorite amp now.
That is an absolutely incredible story.
Yeah, it's the Dookie amp.
Yeah.
So now there's 4 in existence.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's fucking amazing. Oh my God, I'm very jealous.
Yeah.
I got to hear that on some records.
Yeah, you can hear. You'll be hearing it more and more now.
Yeah,
it's like my go-to thing.
That is fucking amazing.
Yeah.
All right, so we're on to our plug or unplug segment. For our listeners and for you, if you don't know, I'm going to name a plugin or a piece of gear, and you hit me with plug if it's something you really love, unplug if it's not for you, or bypass or make inactive if you've never heard it or you've never used it before.
Okay.
Pretty simple.
Okay.
This first one, kind of a newish thing.
I'm scared now because I don't know if I'm up on my plugins.
I had someone in here the other day, and they knew 1 out of the 6.
We just did Cyber Monday, though, so...
Yeah, so, you know.
2 days ago, I bought 100 new plugins.
There you go.
Maybe I've heard it cursorily, you know.
First one, Safari Pedals, Yak Delay.
Okay, bypass, I know of it. I've never used it.
It's really good. I just got the Safari Pedals stuff, like, I want to say like 2 months ago.
Yeah.
And like, I like any, you know, plugin thing where there's like a bunch of them. It's like, they're all good. There's like a couple that I'm like, ooh, these are really good. And Yak Delay is one of them.
Do you buy the individual modules?
Nah, I just bought the thing, the pack.
A whole pack.
Yeah,
okay.
like it's like you get all of them for however much money it is. Yeah, it's really good. It's like, it's basically modeling like some like tape delays and whatever, but
Yeah.
it's one of those things where it's like when a track isn't hitting, I'll just throw it on there and I'm like, oh, now it hits. Like, cool. And it's great on guitars too.
Okay.
Really, really, really great
All
on
right.
guitars. Next one. This is a amazingly classic one, but with your experience and with Rob, I was curious if you ever used one of these and if you have a vintagey or even a newer UAD 1176 compressor.
Yeah, plug.
Yeah.
All day.
Absolutely.
Vintage and new.
Right. Do you have one or you mostly use them in studios?
I don't have one here. I have one in a studio in Wisconsin where I work. I've been working on this musical. We can circle back to that. But and we write it in Wisconsin for series of reasons. Yeah. And we built a little studio there, and the 1176 and the Mellotron is there. But I'm using it as a plug-in all the time. Yeah. And it's shit.
What are your normal settings, let's say, for like a vocal?
I think they call it the Dr. Pepper setting or the Pepsi setting. In reading so many threads about it, I came across this, and I don't even remember why they call it that. It's some silly old school head thing. Yeah. But the setting is attack is at like 10 o'clock and release is at like 2 o'clock. Yeah. So a little slower attack, a little faster release. Then you're at 8 or 8 and 12 for the ratio, like punching them both in. And then obviously you're just dialing that depending on how hot you're hitting it. So 9 times out of 10, I'm starting there. And then depending on my tempo, I'm going to attack and release more. But I don't, the ratio buttons are the unknown to me because I like all of them. Right. But I am reluctant to go nuke mode and put them all in just because it feels like that's too much, but it doesn't ever sound like too much to me. It just feels like...
I've done it a handful of times, but I'm like, I'm doing this on purpose because I want this like vocal to sound like right up against you. And every time, I think the 2 times I've actually done it, I've been like, damn, this is one of the best vocals I've ever recorded, but I'm always so afraid to do it.
Yeah, otherwise, I don't reach for it just because I feel like, well, we should exercise caution here, So I end up just going for the two
I've
ones.
never done the 2 middle one, though. I should do that.
That's what
I have an
always.
Audioscape clone of it, and I think Audioscape makes the best clone of it.
Okay.
I love Audioscape.
Cool.
Those guys are making incredible things.
Cool.
What do you like to use, at least in the plugin version? Like, are you like a blackface, a blueface? What do you like to go for?
I like to use the blackface, and they have so damn many. UAD has like, I can't even figure out what's what. Really, at this point, I just click on whatever one, because sometimes it's Spark, sometimes it's not Spark. Yeah. If a blue one pops up, I'll use the blue one, but the black one is just like what I know.
Same.
And I do feel like the black one is, you know what it is, dude? It's so biased. I like blackface Fender amps over silverface Fender amps. Why? I don't know, because one time I heard the master volume twin reverb is like not as fresh as the non-master. It's like all of it is just, my brain is addled with Redditors telling me what is and isn't cool. But also I learned to love Fender amps by backlining them on the road. Yeah. And the blackface is what they always have.
Right. It's just there.
That was just by happenstance that I always had blackface Fenders. I never even have owned a twin reverb, but I've played them at every show of my life because that's what I'll backline that in like an AC30 or something. Yeah. But so the blackface just feels like a comfortable thing.
It's one of those things where it's like, what's the word I'm looking for? We know it, and like it's what even listeners know as like a good vocal sound.
Yeah, it's familiar.
It's familiar, and so it's just like, oh, this is what a good vocal is. Yeah. Again, being a guitar player, I was curious if you used this next thing before, the Neural DSP Quad Cortex, like their box thing.
Yeah, a little bit. I don't own it, but it is the future, and it's badass.
Yeah. My buddy, Evan Blair?
Yeah.
Yeah, Evan has one. He swears by
it. I watched that. You had him on the cast too, right?
I had him here. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah, he's like, on the podcast, he swore by it. He's like, yep. That's all I use.
I was in Nashville, and Rob Ragosta, who I was working with, also swore by it, and then I came home and messed with it. However, that dovetailed with, I was about to do a run of shows, and I was like, am I going to use my Kemper, or am I going to learn this new platform?
And just use the Kemper.
And I just used the Kemper. But like there was a week in between there where I was like, am I about to like speed run this quad thing?
Yeah.
And I really liked it, but I didn't purchase it or fully get under the hood.
Yeah,
so.
I think I might eventually get it. It's just like I have my Kemper right now and I'm like so comfortable with it.
I think it's quite different than the Kemper.
No, that's what I've heard. And like I used a little bit the other day with who's actually going to be here tomorrow morning for the podcast, Daisy.
Yeah.
He has one and I was just like, man, this is really fucking good. Like, do I just pull the trigger?
Yeah, I think the answer is yeah.
Maybe next Black Friday.
Yeah, right. Yeah, next Black Friday.
Next Black Friday. I don't even know if they did a sale.
Right. Likely they did.
Right, likely they did. Next plugin here. Very widely used plugin. Sound Toys Phase Mistress.
Yeah, I love Sound Toys. I don't use, of all of their stuff, what I reach for most is decap, obviously.
Yes, obviously.
My favorite thing is, what's their doubler called?
Oh, Microshift.
Microshift.
Yeah.
I sweat.
Yeah.
Tremulator's cool. Microshift and decap I'm using on every production. Phase Mistress, I could reach for more. Usually if I'm going for a phaser, I reach for a guitar, either my Moog 12-step hardware thing, or I'm opening up Guitar Rig, just the effects modules.
Yeah, and you just
and reaching around in there.
Yeah.
But that's just being a guitar player and wanting it to feel like a guitar pedal.
I'm the same way. It's like I asked Phase Mistress because it's like, excuse me, I go so back and forth on it where I'm just like, it's not doing the phase thing that I want it to do. I want it to sound like a guitar phaser, and it's not that. And so it's just like whenever it's not that, I'm like, oh, this is kind of annoying, and we'll see. You know?
One of the plugins I just bought for Cyber Monday yesterday is like a Hendrix fuzz face wannabe. Like it looks like the circle thing. And that'll be like a phasey, distorty thing. So I just bought that.
Okay.
But again, it looks like a guitar pedal.
Right.
And so it's like hitting me in the warm
But
feels,
you know what it is about guitar pedals and like how I think a lot of plugin companies are making it is that like it's simple. Yeah. That's why I like the Safari pedal stuff because it's like, oh, it's got 3 knobs.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
That's why even 1176s, it's like that's got 2 knobs.
Yeah.
That's I want things to be so stupidly simple. Yeah. So I'm more because I don't want to think. I just want to do.
Yeah.
You know, and
yeah, I mean, I go back and forth, but I have like, for instance, the way that this plays out very readily in my studio is I have like the Juno 106, and then I got a Super Gemini recently. Do you know about that little beast?
Yes.
The UDO Super Gemini. Yeah. The Super Gemini is 2 Super 6s on top of one another, so it's like more than enough synth. I will reach for the Juno every time.
Right.
You know what I mean? And one day, because I spent all this fucking money on the thing, I will master the Super Gemini. But mostly, I just want to like look. The layout of the Juno is like so rad.
It's just simple.
It's all there, you know. So the Gemini is cool because it like looks cool, and some people want to come in and wow about the thing. And what it does have that nothing else has is the ribbon. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. So you can like sort of tweak it like a guitar, like a fretless. So that's cool. Yeah. But yeah, I'm with you that simplicity and sort of getting out of our own way is like the thing.
Like anytime a plugin has like, you know, a plugin or a piece of gear has too many things on it. Like I will never buy a piece of like outboard gear unless it's like an EQ that has more than like 5 knobs on it.
Yeah.
And it's like this is too much.
Yeah.
I don't want this.
Yeah. I mean, it's like different strokes, you know? I think it probably speaks to how our brains work. Yes. You know? Yeah. And we're guitar players, so
make it very stupid for me. That's all. That's all I want. All right, this next plugin is a plugin that we ask every guest because it's a highly controversial plugin for whatever reason. CLA vocals.
I have in the past. You leaned on it a lot.
Yeah, as we all have.
Yeah, I get why it's controversial. The only time I will reach for it anymore is if I have a whole separate group that is real backgroundy stuff, and I just want it to like swim immediately.
Okay.
So if it's like gangs, for instance, or if we're stacking a ton of harmonies, and now stuff is like stepping on the lead vocal. So now I'm gonna put the lead and the doubles in their own little group in their own sauce, and then I'm just gonna like smack those backgrounds with a CLA preset effectively, you know? And then that almost never makes it to the final mix process. We're going to go back in and like get really
but just for the sake of moving quick.
Yeah, so it is still a cool like bludgeoning it's like a, you know, a hammer.
Right.
But there was a time, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Christian and I have talked about every once in a while like doing a run through of Love Ride for whoever cares and like opening up that session because like I hardly remember it.
It was just like such a fast
What
thing,
is it? What's on there? You know, I do remember Serum and my Fender Strat, but mostly I remember that because it's in the video.
Right.
So who knows? If we ever end up doing that, it might just be CLA vocal on there. And I wouldn't be ashamed of that.
No, dude, there's so many hit records that have CLA vocals on it.
Yeah.
It's just like, it is what it is. And again, it's that familiar thing. Like, do we like because it's familiar or is it good? You know, what's funny, we were talking about like putting it on background vocals is, you know, I've been using a lot and people will figure it out. But UAD just released that new like vocal plugin where it's like kind of their version of CLA vocals where it's like, oh, it has like, you know, compression, reverb, delay, all in one thing and a bunch of presets.
Right.
And I just started using that where it's like, I'll put it on background vocals like just to see what it does. And it's like, sometimes you're like, oh, that's cool. And just like kind of tweak from there.
I'm that guy, man. Yeah. I mean, I have my vocal chain, of course, but my vocal chain at this point is pretty plug and play. Yeah. So I'm mostly putting it on there and that's where it is. And then I'll tweak a little bit, but it's effectively the same thing as opposed to like building it from the ground up. And like, well, today I'm feeling this and it needs this type of compression, doesn't it? And sometimes I'm in a space where we got time to dick around with that, but not today because I had to make it here to this podcast. So we're just going our template.
You know, speaking of vocal chain, while we're here, what's your even outboard gear stuff too? Like, if you feel like sharing, like, what's your normal vocal chain?
That is top secret.
Okay.
No, it's not. No. I don't care at all. It is pretty straightforward. I have 500 series pre's and compressors that I quite love. There's 3 pre's that I sort of trade between. There's the API 512, I think it's called. That is like the API compressor or API pre. That's badass.
It's amazing on guitars.
Oh yeah, and it plugs in on the front end.
Right.
So it actually works really
useful.
well for guitars. Yeah, I have what's called an Avita MA5, which is it's kind of like the other side. So like I guess it sort of does a Neve thing, but then I also have a Neve pre. Like, so mostly I'm going between the Neve and the API, and then the compressor is also a API, maybe a 522 or 5. Maybe that's the 512C
or whatever it is. The
I
API
have a bone
compressor.
to pick, but I'll take a left turn real quick.
Do it.
One thing that every instrument manufacturer needs to stop doing is naming their shit with just letters and numbers.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
What the hell? I'm supposed to remember U87, U47, 512s. The reason guitars like a Les Paul and a Stratocaster, give it a snappy name.
Yep.
I can never. Maybe it's just me being dyslexic or something.
I feel like it's what they did in like the 40s, 50s, and 60s.
It's lazy. Yeah. Name it something cool, man.
Right, and now
the
it's
Phase
like,
Mistress. Is cool.
Now all the new pieces of gear, like they don't do it like that anymore. They'll like name it something cool, and it's just like a 47, a 251, a 1073. It's like, what are we doing here,
This is such my like niche bone to pick. But Ibanez did it during our whole childhood. Everything was called an XRG 979er. I never bought one. I was like turned off by that.
Fuck that.
And I'm like, it took me a long time to even like Stratocasters, but at least I knew what the hell I was talking about.
They're all nerds. They're not creatives. That's what it is. The nerds, like numbers are perfect.
They want to feel like a submarine or some shit, you know? Right. So anyhow, my outboard gear is 5 whatever the hell it is. And then that goes into an Apollo. And then the chain is like, depending, there's a couple of different chains that
what mic do you normally use for vocals?
Well, dirty secret, the SM7 is oftentimes what we're using if people want to sit in the room. Yeah. But in my booth, there is a thing called a Mojave. Mojave MA5. Again, they're doing it again, these bastards. And there is what else is in there right now? I guess that's my go-to right now. I have that Sphere.
Oh yeah, the
L22.
Yeah,
that one
is that fun?
I kind of like it.
Yeah.
It has too many options, which is the problem again. but it does sound really different from my Mojave, so that's what I like.
It's just having the option to be like, okay, I can use this one today.
And what else is thrown up in my studio right now? I have like this like Octava, like some old Soviet mics that are really cool. It's called an Octava, whatever the hell. That is interesting when doing like indie sleazy stuff.
Yeah.
So those mics, and then through an API stuff or Neve stuff, and then in the DAW is like super straightforward stuff. 1176, Fab Filter de-esser.
Classic.
A couple EQs, mostly Pro Qs.
Yeah.
You know, that's it really.
Yeah.
Like
I'm the same exact way. It's like as you get a better vocal chain, it's like you just end up doing less and less in the box.
Yeah, and like I'll do side chained reverb.
Right.
I like to have the reverb be like really out of the way.
Yep.
So I'm like side chaining it to itself, so it's just filling in the gaps. Yeah. And then maybe like, again, depending on the style, like slapback delay.
Yeah.
You know?
I just have like on my Pro Tools template, I have like fucking 12 sends kind of like ready to go, just so I can like quickly dial things in.
Cool.
And then it's like I'll tweak later.
Yeah.
But it's like I know these are good, and it's like I can like change it up.
Yeah.
If need be. Same thing, like all my side chains are all ready to go.
Cool.
I use Pro and B for the side chaining. I actually really like it.
Yeah.
For that kind of thing.
It is great. I can't speak highly enough on that, and yet I end up reaching for Ableton's multi-band maybe more than I reach for that one. I don't know for any particular reason why. I guess because the visual aspect of Ableton's
because it's also with the Ableton plugin, you can just like see it.
It's right there.
Yeah,
which
at all
is like
times.
Super and there's
nice.
like no latency or anything. Right. Although the Pro and B doesn't.
Pro
have
and B
latency.
hardly has any latency.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, all the Fab Filter stuff is goated.
It's incredible.
It's mostly that.
Yeah.
Mostly Fab Filter stuff and a little bit of UAD stuff.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's all you need. Well, unfortunately, we have to wrap. I've taken up far too much of your time.
Wrap it up. You got a baby.
No, I mean, she's sleeping, so
yeah.
We're all good. But dude, before we wrap, and we can always cut this part out, is there anything that you want to, what's the word?
Pitch?
Not pitch, Jesus Christ. Is there anyone or anything that you want to give a shout out to, or any projects that you're like excited to, that are coming out soon that you want to talk about?
There's two projects that are really close to my heart right now. One I mentioned earlier, which is a musical, like a Broadway style theatrical thing. And we just wrapped up doing 6 weeks of it in LA, and I'm super proud of that, and it was insane. Excuse me. And it's called Blood Love. It's about vampires and rock and roll and love and deceit and redemption.
Dude, you know why I knew this? Because fucking Dan Hennig was just here today, and he was like, I just talked to this motherfucker about musicals.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dan also writes a musical. I was like, wait, why do I know this? Yes.
Yep. Straight up. And Dan came to the show.
There we go. Anyway,
because we got to ride for one another. Like, you know, pop cats do get branching out into the theater.
But he didn't tell me what it was about. So that sounds fucking amazing.
Yeah. It is like pretty gothy. It's like a rock opera. Yeah. Is what it is. And it's going to, I'm happy to report, we're taking it to New York next year.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So I thought we were going to do it next October. We just did it this October, and with all the hubris, we were like, it'll be ready for 1 year from now. That's totally insane. So I think we're about to sign on with the theater for February of 2026.
Okay.
And that's how big the arc is of this project. We've been 5 years in, and now I like can't wait for 2026. Yeah. Which is still 2024
That's
right now.
That's what people like don't realize about musicals, and like just how long
it's insane.
Everything takes.
Yeah, just shy of 10 years is like the norm.
Yeah.
As I understand it. Not like I know any better, but
no, but that's what it is. It's you know, it's so nuts. Dude, that's so exciting. Post about it on Instagram, because I'm from New York, so I'm in New York all the time. I would love to see it. I'm a big musical fan. I was very lucky growing up. I got to go to a bunch of musicals.
Cool.
Because I lived in Long Island. My grandparents loved it.
Yeah. I'm coming to it later. I didn't like come up knowing anything about it or doing it. I was like very just in my rock and roll sort of cycle, but it's so incredible.
Yeah. Dude, it's, you know, like I said, like I was fortunate enough to like be exposed to it pretty young. Like I started going to musicals when I was like 5 years old.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite? I don't either, but musical people have favorites. So
yeah, I mean, like, learned. I haven't been able to go to musicals in the past like 10, 15 years as much because I've been here.
Yeah,
and
we're here.
I was going to Buffalo. So like all
Although
the ones,
Pantages is popping, dude.
Yeah,
I
it's like
go.
all-
I'm in now.
all the ones recently, like I haven't gotten to go to. Like I never
Yeah.
got to see Hamilton, and like
Right.
obviously like everyone like fucking love
I
Hamilton.
just did it. I just saw it
Yeah.
at Pantages.
Funny
2 months
enough,
ago.
the one that always stuck out the most to me was fucking Beauty and the Beast.
Cool.
I like it's like a very like core memory for me.
Tale as old as time, song as old as rhyme.
And I got to like go backstage because my aunt like knew one of the actresses.
Oh yeah.
So it's like I think that's part of why I have this like core memory. I was like, oh, I got to go backstage. And, like,
That's one of
see
my
it.
favorite bars, by the way, of all.
Which one?
A tale as old as time.
Oh, Tales Old as Time.
Song as old as rhyme.
Yeah. Genius songwriting.
Nailed it.
Anyway,
So that's the one project that I'm stoked on, although everyone's got to wait till 2026 to dig on that. And the other one is way more prescient and right upon us, which is a new band that is
sick.
my band that has been sort of percolating for about the past year. And the camp we just did in Switzerland was for
that was for the sick.
And it's called The Audacity is the name of the band.
Okay.
And we will be dropping the stuff that we recorded 8 songs. We did 2 songs in LA just to get our like process together. And then we went to Switzerland and did the other 8 songs. So
amazing.
We got a little 10-song deal right now. Right. And we'll put out 2 5-song EP, and it'll all happen like pretty dang soon.
Okay, so probably by the time this episode drops, it'll be out.
Hope the first song will be
at least
out
the first
anyway.
song. This will drop anywhere from April to September next year.
Okay, cool. All right, well then we should be like on tour killing it.
Good, amazing.
Point. Yeah.
Amazing. So The Audacity, check that out, right?
Yeah.
Did I say that right?
Yeah.
Oh, fucking good.
You got it.
Dude, well anyway, thank you so much for coming on the pod. This was such an amazing conversation.
Same, man.
Our
Thanks
listeners are
for
going to
having
love it. Thank you again to you, and thank you to our listeners, and take care, guys. Thanks for tuning in to Producer Points. Your support means the world to us. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, subscribe, rate, and share with fellow music enthusiasts. For an encore, check out our Spotify playlist featuring all the songs we've discussed on the show, giving you the perfect soundtrack to your creative journey. Additional audio and video editing for this episode was done by Nathan Rebello. Until next time, this is Justin Gamella.